Hey Google, play Joseph Haydn.
Okay, playing Franz Joseph Haydn on YouTube Music.
Irina felt the fatigue still dogging her. Alone in the room for a few minutes, she opened the minibar and took out 3 tiny bottles of various liquors. She opened one and drank it down. She slipped the other 2 into her purse, which she laid on the night table. There she noticed a book in Danish, The Odyssey. I've thought about Odysseus too, she tells Joseph when he returns. He was away from his country like you for 20 years. 20 years? Yes, 20 years exactly. But at least he was pleased to be back? That's not certain. He saw that his countrymen had betrayed him and he killed a lot of them. I don't think he can have been much loved. Penelope loved him, though. Maybe. You're not sure? I've read and reread the passage on their reunion. At first, she didn't recognize him. Then, when things were already clear to everyone else, when the suitors were killed and the traitors punished, she put him through new tests to be sure it really was he. Or rather, to delay the moment when they would be back in bed together. That's understandable, don't you think? A person must be paralyzed after 20 years. Was she faithful to him all that time? She couldn't help but be, all eyes on her, 20 years of chastity. Their night of lovemaking must have been difficult. I imagine that over those 20 years, Penelope's organs would have tightened, shrunk. She was like me. What? No, don't worry, she exclaimed, laughing. I'm not talking about mine. They haven't shrunk. And suddenly, giddy with the explicit mention of her sex organs, her voice lower, she slowly repeats the last sentence translated into dirty words. And then yet again, in a voice lower yet, and words yet more obscene. How unexpected, how intoxicating. For the first time in 20 years, he hears those dirty Czech words, and instantly he is aroused to a degree he has never been since he left this country. Because all those words, coarse, dirty, obscene, only have power over him in his native language, in the language of Ithaca. Since it is through that language, through its deep roots, that the arousal of generations and generations surges up in him. Until this moment, these two have not even kissed, and now, thrillingly, magnificently aroused, in a matter of seconds, they begin to make love. Their accord is total, for she too is aroused by the words she has neither said nor heard for so many years. A total accord in an explosion of obscenities. Ah, how impoverished her life has been. All the vices missed out on, all the infidelities left unrealized, all of that she is avid to experience. She wants to experience everything she ever imagined and never experienced. Voyeurism, exhibitionism, the indecent presence of other people, verbal enormities. Everything she can now do, she tries to do. And what cannot be done, she imagines with him aloud. Their accord is total, for deep down Joseph knows, and he may even want it so, that this erotic session is his last. He too is making love as if he hopes to sum up everything, his past adventures and those that will no longer happen. For each of them, it is a tour through sexual life at high speed. The daring moves that lovers come to only after many encounters, if not many years, they accomplish in a rush, the one stimulating the other as if they hope to compress into one single afternoon everything they have missed and are going to miss. Then when did they lie side by side on their backs? And she says, it's years since I've made love. You won't believe me. It's years since I've made love. That sincerity moves him, strangely, deeply. He shuts his eyes. She takes advantage of the moment to lean over to her purse and slip a tiny bottle out of it. Swiftly, discreetly, she drinks. He opens his eyes. Don't drink, don't. You'll be drunk. Leave me alone, she defends herself. Feeling the fatigue that won't be driven off, she'll do whatever it takes to hold on to her fully wakened senses. That is why, even though he's watching, she empties the third little bottle, and then, as if to explain herself, as if to excuse herself, she repeats that she hasn't made love for a long while. And this time she says it in dirty words from her native Ithaca, and again the magic of the obscenity arouses Joseph, and he begins again to make love to her. In Irina's head, the alcohol plays a double role. It frees her fantasy, encourages her boldness, makes her sensual, and at the same time, it dims her memory. She makes love wildly, lasciviously, and at the same time, the curtain of oblivion wraps her lewdness in an all-concealing darkness, as if a poet were writing his greatest poem with ink that instantly disappears. The mother set the disc into a big player and pressed several buttons to program the pieces she liked. Then she plunged into the bathtub, and with the door left open, she listened to the music. It was her personal selection of 4 dance pieces: a tango, a waltz, a charleston, a rock and roll, which through the machine's technical prowess played over and over endlessly with no further intervention. She stood up in the tub, washed at length, stepped out, toweled herself down, slipped on her robe, and walked into the living room. Then Gustav arrived after a long lunch with some Swedes passing through Prague, and he asked her where Irina was. She answered, mixing bad English with some Czech, simplified for his sake. She phoned. She won't be back till late tonight. How was lunch? Much too much. Have a digestive, and she poured some liqueur into 2 glasses. That's something I never turn down, Gustav exclaimed, and he drank. The mother whistled the tune of the waltz and undulated her hips. Then, without a word, she laid her hands on Gustav's shoulders and did a few dance steps with him. You're in a magnificent mood, said Gustav. Yes, the mother answered, and she went on dancing. Her movements so overdrawn, so theatrical that with short, awkward bursts of laughter, Gustav executed some exaggerated steps and gestures himself. He went along with this parodical performance both to prove that he didn't want to spoil the fun and to recall, with bashful vanity, that he used to be an excellent dancer and still was. As they danced, the mother led him toward the great mirror on the wall, and the 2 of them turned their heads to watch themselves. Then she let go of him, and without touching, they improvised routines facing the mirror. Gustav was making dancing gestures with his hands, and like her, never took his eyes off their reflection. So he saw the mother's hand come to settle on his crotch. The scene taking place illustrates an immemorial error of men. Having appropriated for themselves the role of seducers, they never even consider any women but the ones they might desire. The idea doesn't occur to them that a woman who is ugly or old, or who simply stands outside their own erotic imaginings, might want to possess them. Sleeping with Irina's mother was to Gustav so thoroughly unthinkable, fantastical, unreal, that struck dumb by her touch, he has no idea what to do. His first reflex is to lift her hand away. Yet he does not dare. A commandment is graven in him since his childhood: thou shalt not be crude with a woman. So he goes on making his dancing motions and staring in stupefaction at the hand placed between his legs. Her hand still on his crotch, the mother rocks in place and keeps watching herself in the mirror. Then she lets her robe gape open, and Gustav glimpses her opulent breasts and the dark triangle below. Embarrassed, he feels his member swelling. Without taking her eyes from the mirror, the mother finally lifts her hand away, but only to slip it into his trousers and grasp the naked member in her fingers. It grows harder, and still continuing her dance movements and gazing at the mirror, she exclaims admiringly in her vibrant, alto voice, oh, unbelievable, unbelievable.